Darren, speaking about China, and my question is really directed at what's happening and what we're seeing in terms of China's economy and its demographic issues, but looking at Japan as a case study, given its ultra-easy monetary policy, do you agree with perhaps this view that monetary policy is blunted when there are these concerns around demographics and that governments need to look more on the fiscal policy side of things and structural reform?
Yes, I do think so. I mean, monetary policy is quite limited in the sense that it's essentially a tool that has most influence on the short-term factors that are affecting the economy. Of course, mainly interest rates as well as inflation. Whereas strong long-term structural trends like demographics require a much more determined and holistic government effort, both on the fiscal and perhaps even on the monetary side, to address. And the growth headwinds in China are so strong that I doubt that from demographics is so strong that I doubt that monetary policy alone will be able to address that. So by my estimates, the working age population is set to fall so rapidly over the next decade that the Chinese economy will have to deal with a 1 percentage point drag to GDP growth per year on average for the next 10 years. So just relying on monetary policy alone is not going to be enough.
Yes, and Darren, just looking at the OECD data that we got, and also your notes talking about South Asia versus East Asia, the growing versus the shrinking, how much do you think this has to do with just developed economies versus developing economies and the growing costs of child rearing for richer countries?
I think it pretty much has a lot to do with that, in more developed societies, the tendency is that parents face a much higher cost of raising children, and that tends to be a deterrent to having children. And that's naturally, I think, a consequence of development. And the more developed the economy is, the more skills the actors in the economy have to have, and thus the required investment in each children rises by that amount. Although, interestingly, while India is still set to see the largest demographic boom in recorded history, so within the next 10 years, UN projections suggest that the Indian workforce will increase by another 18 million. But one key fact about the Indian fertility situation is that it's actually having a much lower fertility rate than you would expect for a country at that income level. India's fertility rate is around 2, so it's slightly below 2.1, the replacement rate. And I think researchers are still scratching their heads generally to explain that fall in the birth rate. But one suggested mechanism is that health outcomes in India among adults is becoming an impediment to fertility. So the adults are actually not healthy enough.